Here are my initial thoughts on Dead Space Remake. Currently, it's available on EA Play on the PS5. Now, I was lucky enough to get it because about a month ago, they were doing this deal where you could get EA Play for 79p for 1 month, and obviously after that, it's if you've got your billings set up, it's a £3.99 reoccurring bill for each month. So I'm only doing it for a month, and I really only got that to get the 10-hour trial of FC24 for the PS5, and I've only got about a week left anyway. So yeah, it's available on there, and it will be available on Game Pass next week. So for those of you who've got an Xbox, you'll be able to sit there and play it there next week. Now, I don't know if it's currently available on the EA Play app on the Xbox Series X, because there's no way to kind of check for some weird reason. So that's how I've been playing it, and I was kind of surprised because initially I was gonna wait until I activated one of my Game Pass Ultimate codes to eventually do a playthrough of it. So I'm kind of doing a rough playthrough of it, and then I think what I'll do is when I eventually subscribe back to Game Pass Ultimate, I'll do a proper playthrough of it. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the Dead Space series. Initially, I played the first one on the PS3, and then following after that, obviously there was the sequel Dead Space 2, which I played on the PS3 again. And then the last game, which was Dead Space 3, which came on the PS3 as well. All three games were available on the Xbox 360 as well, but at the time I only had the PlayStation 3 console. There was also a shoot 'em up game called, I think it was called Dead Space Ignition, which initially came out on the Nintendo Wii, and then would be enhanced and released for the 360 and the PS3. I don't know if they're available to get the play on certain packs for free, or you have to buy the game separately. But I remember having that for the Wii, which I still have, and you could with the light gun attachment that you got with Link's crossbow challenge, you could actually use it into a light gun or the House of the Dead game. So you could use it as a light gun game. Don't remember if I completed it, by the way, but anyway, so that was available. And then when I eventually got the Xbox One S and later on the Xbox Series X, because obviously I don't have the equipment to stream the Dead Space games from the PS3, I basically bought Dead Space. I think I bought Dead Space 1 was on Game Pass, so I basically didn't need to buy that one, so I just streamed it from there, and then obviously just recorded the playthrough, and then the whole entire playthrough is on my YouTube channel. Dead Space 2, I did buy cheap, secondhand, must have been about £2 for the Xbox 360, and then maybe about £1.50 for Dead Space 3, which I'm still practicing because I'm a bit rusty on that, because it's a very different game to the previous two games, and I know a lot of people don't like the third entry because they did so many changes to the actual game. But with the games on the 360, the games were Dead Space 1, 2, and 3 were backward compatible. So whether or not you used the Game Pass Ultimate to get EA Play with all the Dead Space games on there, you could play it via that, or if you bought the actual physical disc of all three games, you could actually, it was backward compatible for the Xbox One S and X and the Xbox Series S and X. So that's how I did it, and I think they slightly enhanced that a tiny bit. So yeah, I've played the game so many times on both platforms. I kind of know it from the back of my hand. Again, Dead Space 3, don't know some as well because it's a very different game, so that's why you haven't seen a playthrough of it quite yet. Anyway, when I heard news about the EA were remaking it, I was very, very skeptical because you're remaking a classic game, and generally speaking, this is before Resident Evil 4 Remake, and I know that Resident Evil 1 was remade on the GameCube. But with such a classic, iconic game, I was kind of worried about what they would do to the remake and what they could do to improve upon the game, or what added changes they could make the game. So you're always kind of skeptical about game companies redoing games from scratch. Again, this isn't a remaster. This is the game was totally done from scratch, although it's technically the same game. And then when I saw the reviews of it, and obviously other people's playthroughs on YouTube, I was absolutely thrilled by the actual game. So you can do a skill shot for 10 minutes. So again, I've been waiting for like a price drop to actually buy the game physically, because this is why I'm a Dead Space fan. Or you can call me a fanboy in that genre of franchise. And again, I was absolutely amazed by what a great job there was done, and especially obviously coming from EA, although they're the publishers, not the developers, and it's not the same developers that made the original game. But all I can say is that when seeing the actual playthrough of it and actually playing it, wow, it's very different. Now, Dead Space has always been had a lot of jump scares, especially with the monsters and the way the atmosphere. It was very atmospheric in terms of the places were very dark. So when you saw monsters jumping out of out of nowhere, you kind of gave you these jump scares. Now, playing Dead Space 1, which was what we'll talk about, not so much Dead Space 2. Because I knew the game the back of my hand, and I played it so many times over the years. For me, it's not so much of a jump scare anymore, because you know what to expect because you've played it so many times. And I've currently been streaming this on Twitch, and I can say it's absolutely amazing. One of the biggest changes that they've done is that the fact that now Isaac now talks, which he didn't start doing until Dead Space 2. They've actually got the same actor who voiced him from Dead Space 2 and 3. So that's really great. And a lot of people were criticizing the look of the way Isaac looks when he takes off his mask, because he looks totally different to how he did in the original Dead Space. And the reason why he looks different is because what they've done is they've modeled the way they've modeled the voice actor's looks onto the video game character of Isaac, so he looks like the voice actor. So that's why he looks very different. So if you look, I've forgotten the names. The guy's name is Gunnar something. I think it's Gunnar Clark. I could be wrong, but you can easily look it up on YouTube or Wikipedia to find the actor's names, and you can see the picture of the guy. But it looks exactly like him. One of the also differences that I found is the actual control system. It seems that the way that you walk and you aim as well, it seems to be a little bit different. For me, it seemed a little bit harder, simply because of the fact that obviously with the PS5 control pad, obviously with the haptic feedback on the trigger button, so it's a lot harder. Now, for me, with the haptic feedback on certain games, for me it's been kind of hit and miss in terms of the use of this. Although I see what Sony is doing, but on some games it kind of doesn't work, especially if you're playing something like maybe like Resident Evil Remake or Call of Duty, where you just want a quick fire trigger. And with the haptic feedback, it's behaving kind of like how a real gun would be, when there's a little bit of tension to it, or if you was using a bow, especially in games like Horizon Forbidden West or Horizon Zero Dawn. But that's a lot different. So it's a lot. So to me, that took a little bit of time to kind of get used to. Obviously, also the fact that the PS5 pad is a lot bigger. With obviously, one of the things that you'll notice, even just from this screenshot here, this is a trophy that I've done called Welcome Aboard. You'll also notice the fact that it's so detailed. Like you can see the metal on Isaac's uniform, on his helmet, where you can see where it's been battle scarred and the little scratches here and there. And it's just, for me, one of the biggest differences in this game is the attention to detail on the graphics, not just on Isaac, but also on the different stuff around the environment of the ship of the Ushimura that Isaac is aboard trying to find his girlfriend Nicole. But you can see that the difference between the original version and the remake is, to me, is literally almost night and day in terms of the actual graphics. It's really highly detailed, very atmospheric, dark, and so the tension of the monsters in this, kind of, if you thought that you knew where the monsters were how to play it in the original one, it's totally different on this game. The animation on the actual creatures themselves, a lot more detailed, even down to the flesh that is hanging off of the creature's bones, where you can actually see the actual tendons and muscle fibers and the blood that's sort of dripping off of the actual creatures. They're actually a lot smoother now. Now, that obviously that's dependent on whether or not you're using the performance mode, obviously, which you lose a little bit of the detail, but obviously you get it running at 60 frames per second. Again, I'm playing it on a 1080p TV, so you'd get a lot more benefit out of it if you was playing on a 4K, a lot more detail. So so that's gonna be really hard, and then so that's gonna be really hard for me to convey that, not only on the film of this, but obviously that I don't have the actual 4K TV. Bearing in mind that what I will say is that the creatures in this now move a lot faster than they did in the original one, so be wary of that. You still obviously have to shoot off the limbs to slow them down, so that's still the same way, but they're a lot quicker in this version. Now I'm playing it on medium level, which is the standard version difficulty setting that it's set. You can play it on harder, but obviously the game's going to be a lot harder. So you got that. The basic story plot of the game is pretty much the same. Now I don't know, I can't remember if the missions are exactly the same, because I do know on this, if I remember correctly, that there are secondary missions, objectives that you can do on this game. Things like finding a weapon, finding module parts of the weapons, upgrading your weapons, that's still exactly the same, and I'd highly recommend obviously upgrading your weapons, because in the beginning you can kind of get away with it the same way in the original, but obviously the creatures are going to get a lot harder to actually take down. You eventually get status where you can slow creatures down. You can throw items at them. You can throw limbs from the creatures that you've already killed into other creatures, similar to what you did in the previous one. You can also carry fire extinguishers or fire extinguishers, which also can do damage to the creatures. You see these metal fan blades that are around the ship. You can also smash those and pick up the blades and then throw them at using your telekinetic module at the creatures to take them down. But you can only do that once you get that particular once you get those two particular modules. Again, that's exactly the same. I'm trying to think what else. There's some other differences in the game where you can open up different sections of the ship. I think it's called like a breaker, and what you can do is that you can you have to find this part at the beginning of the game, and you have to take the elevator up to actually get to this particular thing, and then what you have to do is that you have to power this particular room to get this certain part from this crew. But by choosing that option, what you end up doing is that you end up shutting off another room, and then you end up having to turn off the lights, which means you're virtually in pitch black. But this, so the sacrifice you make is that and I think this will play out in the rest of the game as well, where you've got the option of opening up other sections but closing off other sections, obviously because you've got to power it up, and then obviously using the breaker to turn off the lights in certain areas of the ship, so it allows you to power up other parts, areas, other rooms or areas to get hidden goodies. But the price you pay for that is that you're going to be in pitch black, and obviously the creatures will be running after you, and it's going to make it a lot more difficult sort of to take them out or to see where they're coming from, unless you're very careful at listening to where they're coming from. Again, I learned this the hard way. Obviously, when you see somebody playing it, it's not exactly the same way when you actually see it, but playing it, it's a whole different matter. But as I said, the controls seem a lot smoother, a lot more precise. But as I said before, I don't know if it's because of the size of the PS5 pad and the haptic feedback, which I think you can. I suppose you will have the option to be able to turn it off, because I've noticed that in most games. But I'm gonna stick to that for now. But overall, in general, in terms of I've done the first chapter and I'm into the second chapter of the actual game. I'm really enjoying it and enjoying this game. Again, even if I do a proper playthrough on the Xbox via Game Pass, because obviously I'll have that for a month or two. I will do probably a proper walkthrough of it, And even if I do complete it, I'm definitely going to buy a physical copy of the game, because I prefer I'm the kind of guy where I prefer physical media of my games. But if you've got the opportunity to play games, whether, especially if you can't afford it, whether it's on, you've got access to subscription services. Same thing with TV streaming services, and then you watch it or play it in the meantime until you're able to own the physical media. So that's what I tend to do until the price drops. But yeah, I'm absolutely enjoying the actual game. But it's a ton of scares in the game now, because obviously the monsters are coming out completely different. They're a lot faster, and it's a lot harder to kind of aim at their limbs to kind of take them out. Especially the fact that my weapons aren't obviously powered up yet, because what you'll do is that you'll find nods, which is similar to what you did in the other 3 games, which when you go to the workbench, you're able to upgrade. When it comes to weapons, you can upgrade the capacity of your weapons, the damage, stuff like that, and you get like a special feature in it, and there's also a secondary feature that's on all the weapons. Same thing with the nods, should I say? But same thing with the previous games, where you can also use it to improve your rig, where you can obviously increase the duration of your air supply. When you use your kinetic power or your stasis, you can increase that in terms of how long the effects will last. HP in terms of your health rig that you can see at the back of Isaac's suit. So you can upgrade those, which I did in the other previous free games. I have noticed that it's harder to find credit, like where you're getting a little bit of credit, and I've only got just over 7,800, and to get the next suit it's 10,000 credits, so I'm still quite a way away. And the next suit will then allow me to 5% more armor for the next suit, and also will allow you to carry more weapons. And obviously during the game you will be able to find suit upgrades and the actual in terms of different suits. Again, I'm assuming this is going to be the same thing with the previous the original 3 games, where you probably will be able to buy the suits and weapons depending on which platform you are. So you can buy them. Obviously that's going to cost you money to be able to do that kind of thing. But yeah, my initial impression of Dead Space Remake is I'm absolutely, really thoroughly enjoying this game. It's only a shame that it wasn't put on much earlier when I had bought EA Play. Otherwise I would have done the complete playthrough on PS5. But again, doesn't matter, because whether or not I complete this on Game Pass Ultimate, or eventually down the line, the physical version of it comes down to a reasonable price, I definitely will be picking this up. And if you're somebody that's into kind of like horror games, especially when you've played games like Silent Hill and the Resident Evil games, and even the Dead Space original games, even if you've played the original games before, I still would say if you can afford to pick it up at a reasonable price, but even at the moment now you can afford to, I would say definitely pick it up. Or if you got access to the streaming services, whether it's EA Play or eventually Game Pass, I definitely would say try it out on those, because you'll absolutely love the game. But for me, it's literally like playing a new game, even though technically speaking it actually isn't. So yeah, that's my initial thoughts of Dead Space Remake. Again, absolutely loving it. I know it was widely acclaimed in terms of reviews with YouTubers and other review sites. I'm really hoping that what EA do is that they take note of this now with the success of Dead Space Remake, and they make Dead Space 2 Remake, because and then obviously a lot of people didn't like the Dead Space 3. So to me, this is their chance. If they do decide to go down that route of remaking Dead Space 2, that they could do the same thing with Dead Space 3 and kind of redeem themselves in terms of how they originally envisioned the story. Because I know that I was doing some research on the Dead Space franchise, that the route that they went down with Dead Space 3 wasn't the initial route that they wanted to go down in terms of what they wanted to do with Dead Space 3. You know how corporate big wigs can be in terms of what they want in terms of what the developers want in terms of the story. But yeah, I'm thoroughly kind of enjoying this. I have done an unboxing of the Callisto Protocol, which was made by some of the developers on the original Dead Space games. And I know that there was one developer that I saw on another YouTube channel, and he was watching a YouTuber, you sitting with a YouTuber playing the actual game, or playing the actual remake of the game, and then he absolutely loved the remake version of it compared to his original version of it that he did. So that's kind of nice to hear that, you know, like one of the original developers that worked in the original Dead Space game, it actually really enjoyed and loved what they did with the Dead Space remake, which is a very rare thing to hear. The original developer praising the new developer of the game, because usually there's always a conflict where the original developer doesn't like what the new developers have done with the original game. But you know, that's all good. But yeah, that's my initial thoughts of Dead Space remake. Again, as I said before, it's available to buy on all systems, next gen systems. Obviously that would be PC, PlayStation 5, Series X and S, and obviously it's on EA Play at the moment on PlayStation, and it will be on available next week. I think it's the 26th, or 27th, on Game Pass Ultimate. So you're about to play it on there, because obviously EA Play is part of the Game Pass Ultimate package. So yeah, that will be available for the Xbox users to play. But yeah, definitely recommend picking this up either way, whichever way you go around playing this. So yeah, back to more Dead Space Remake.